Who's ready to talk some NFL football? We got futures bets, Super Bowl predictions. Let's talk a little pigskin. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back in to another episode for Just a Bet Outside. I'm your host, Steven, and we are here finally to talk some NFL football. We got the season preview video, and I am ready to roll. That's right, baby. We are less than 2 weeks away from the opening day, which is Ravens at the Chiefs. It's time. You know it's time. It's that time of the year. It's almost fall. This is going to be exciting. So leave a comment, by the way, during this video with any questions you have about NFL teams. I'd love to talk football with you guys. That's one of the reasons we created this channel. So if you have questions on futures bets or just want to make a comment about a certain team that you think is going to be good or bad or whatever it is, I would appreciate it, and it helps the algorithm as well. So before we get into the plan for this video, I just want to mention what our plan is for this season, so you guys know. We're gonna have a video every Wednesday night for the Thursday night football game alone, and then Thursday night video will be all the best game bets for this weekend, for that weekend's games with our trends. They're gonna be coming back just like last year. And then Friday night video will be my favorite NFL player props. We were on a roll with those last year. And then Sunday night, week one, we plan on going live. That's right, around halftime, probably of the afternoon games. We're going to go live, me and Ryan, and we're going to recap the NFL weekend, just have some fun talking football with you guys. And you guys can ask me whatever you want, ask Ryan, whatever it is. And then Sunday night after the live video, we will have our Monday night football video as well. So just want to let you guys know, I appreciate the support. It's going to be another fun season. So, as for this video, I'm going to talk 3 overrated NFL teams, and then I'm going to give you 2 underrated NFL teams, and then I'm going to give you all my best futures bets, and we're going to finish it off with the Super Bowl prediction for 2024, and then wrap it all up with that recap like usual. So, hit that like button, leave a comment below. All season long, you guys have been doing it during MLB. I appreciate all the support. Let's do the same thing for NFL. And let's have some fun talking football. So let's get into it. And that means it's time to talk some overrated NFL teams. Let's talk overrated team number 1, and it is America's team, the Dallas freaking Cowboys. First of all, in this division, the NFC East, there has been no repeat winner in 19 straight seasons. It is absolutely tough to win it 2 years in a row. That's a wild stat. But let's break down the offense a little bit first. They did score the most points in the league last year. But it was all just to barely win a division and get blown out in the playoffs, just like the Cowboys like to do. But they lost some players. How about Tyron Smith, one of their elite offensive tackles, along with Biadas, if that's how you pronounce his name. So they're going to take a big hit there. They're going to have to rely on, like, the first rounder they just drafted, Tyler Guyton, and then Zach Martin. Can he still be elite at age 34? So I think the O-line is going to take a big step back, and when that happens, I don't trust Zach. I really don't. When he was having his best years of his career, it's because he had one of the best O-lines in NFL history for like a couple years span there. So behind that, he's not going to be able to rely on running backs because he's got Rico Dowdle and an aging Zeke Elliott along with Royce Freeman. But this running back room is one of the weaker ones in the NFL. Let's be honest with you. I'm going to be honest. And I just don't think they're that good. I think Rico Dowdle has shown flashes, but I don't think he's a number 1 type guy. And when you have a weaker O-line, it's going to be tough. We saw Tony Pollard. He was pretty good as the second guy. And then all of a sudden he had to be the number 1 main running back, and he didn't perform well, and now he's off the team. So, and then you go to the receiver, CeeDee Lamb. Obviously needs to sign a contract. That would help. But behind him, I don't love the depth at all, to be honest. It's Brandon Cooks, and I'm not a huge fan. He's getting older as well. So this offense, I think, is going to take a step back. They'll still be able to score some points, but I don't see them being the number 1 offense at all this year. Defensively now, they finished 23rd in EPA last year, and that includes them struggling at the end of the year, especially in the playoffs. How about allowing 48 points to the Packers? That was absolutely pathetic. It was a terrible way to end their season. And a big reason of that game was the middle of their defense. It absolutely struggled, and it struggled against the run. And I see it struggling again this year. They have the same 2 guys returning, Mozzie Smith, and I never could say this guy's name, Osa something or other. But they're both returning, and I don't think they're going to be that good on the defensive line. The theme for this team that you're going to hear is that they just didn't do much to improve. They really didn't. So they have a good pass rush, obviously led by Micah Parsons, who's an absolute stud. He does have some down games because other teams are literally focusing all of their attention on him. But they lost Armstrong, who had 7.5 sacks. He was their number 2 pass rusher last year. They lost Fowler, 4.5 sacks. They still have DeMarcus Lawrence. He's 32 years old. Now, at DB, they have Diggs and Bland, a good combo. They couldn't stay healthy last year. They're going to need to stay healthy this year. They lost Stephon Gilmore. Their linebackers are weak. I mean, let's face it. And their safeties are just okay, in my opinion. They played okay last year. They're rated okay. But overall, as you guys can tell, I'm not a huge Cowboys guy this year. They lost Pollard, and they lost two good offensive linemen. And they lost some guys on the defense. This team did nothing to improve. They just absolutely did not. It's really going to be tough to dominate games when you're struggling in the run game, both offensively and defensively. And I'm a big guy where if you're not good in the trenches, you're going to struggle, and that's going to be key for football. Obviously, it's an aging team that lacks depth in certain positions. I think they're going to be a wild card team, but I don't think they compete for the division, and I think they take a step back from last year. And I think they're an overrated team, which it's the Dallas Cowboys. They're overrated every single year because they're America's team, and of course, you can't trust them in the playoffs. So as for their schedule, they have the eighth easiest schedule, so that does help. But the Eagles also have the fifth easiest schedule. So the division as a whole has a pretty easy schedule this year. So that's what I got for overrated team number one in the Cowboys. And now let's go talk about team number two. All right, this second one is another team that some people are going to be very upset about. It is the Chicago Bears. That's right. Bears are absolutely heading in the right direction. Let's just start out with that. They are heading in the right direction finally. They got a quarterback. We think we'll see what he turns out to be, but they made some good moves. But their O line was absolutely horrendous last year. Let's just start out there. They had a ton of injuries, which didn't help. And now they're going to rely on youngsters Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones to step up. Even their guards were hurt as well. Jenkins, Nate Davis. So center is just okay. Ryan Bates. So the O line is going to be, I think, an issue again for them this year. I think they might be a little bit better. Well, obviously with health, you're going to be a little better already. But the O line still is nothing special, that's for sure. But the wide receiver trio, I know everyone's excited about this team because of this. I mean, you got new pieces everywhere though. Keenan Allen, rookie Rome and Dunze from my neck of the woods, DJ Moore, and then they added DeAndre Swift in the backfield too. So, they got some players. Can they all gel right away? I think it's going to take some time because, of course, you have a rookie quarterback. The Bears are the only franchise to never have a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards, which is insane to me. But obviously, these players are good. Keenan Allen is aging, still got some tread on those tires, that's for sure. A rookie, what can you expect from him? DJ Moore just signed a big contract. So we'll see. They definitely have some talent on the offense, that's for sure. But again, if you have a rookie quarterback and an O line that struggles, that's going to equal some games where you're going to see some struggles as well. But defense, they played much better the second half of the year. Part of that, they traded for Montez Sweat, and he helped them out a lot. They got Jalen Johnson back, one of the best corners in the NFL. But this team freaking lacks some pass rushers. My goodness. Other than Sweat, they have absolutely nobody. DeMarcus Walker had 3.5 sacks in 17 games last year. Billings is a run stuffer, which helps, but he doesn't help the pass rush. Dexter had 2.5 sacks. They really got nothing. Let's be honest with you. That's going to be one of their biggest weaknesses is they cannot get to the quarterback. Jalen Johnson is a stud at DB. We know that. But again, here they lack depth as well. They're counting on guys like Tyreek Stevenson, their slot corner, Kyle Gordon, I think is his name. Kyler Gordon. But anyways, he did play well last year. Safety's decent, Brisker and Biard, but they're okay. They're aging a little bit too, or Biard is at least. Linebackers, it may be their strength because they got some good players and they spent some money on it. TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, they got a good group there. But like I said, the biggest problem they're going to have is their pass rush. And if you don't have a pass rush, that's going to be a problem in the NFL. So overall, this team's iffy in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Rookie quarterback and a tough schedule. Let's talk about that tough schedule. 4 games already. First of all, they're in the tough division. That's for sure. Packers and Lions are two teams that people think are going to have some good things happening to them this year. They have 4 games versus them, obviously, every single year. They play at Houston. They play at the Colts, at the 49ers, against the Rams, against the Seahawks. That's 9 tough games right there. So I think it's going to be tough. I think the Chicago fans are getting a little too excited right now about their Bears, and they should be. I'm not saying they shouldn't because they are heading in the right direction, but I think we're still a year away. We need to see Caleb Williams, and then we need to add some pieces with pass rush and O-line and things like that. So we'll see what happens. But for me, the Chicago Bears are my overrated team number 2. All right, this third and final overrated team, you may have heard me talk about it on the Kerm Show. It is the Baltimore Ravens. That's right. Let's talk about their coaching real quick. They now have the second youngest defensive coordinator in the league, losing Coach Mack to the Seattle Seahawks. I think that is a huge loss for them. I really do. He brought a lot to that team, the toughness. The players loved him. When you lose a coordinator, you can struggle. Just ask the Philadelphia Eagles when they lost their coordinators. But now they're going to be rolling with Zach Orr, who is 32 years old. It's a big difference. Now, offensively wise, they have a weak O line. This is you're going to hear me talk about this a lot, and I talked to Ryan a lot about it. O lines are important, and this O line could be one of the worst five. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they have some guys step up. But after Lamar's first MVP season, he did not play well the next year because they lost Yonda, they lost Ronnie Stanley. When he suffered a big injury. So when he has a weak O line, he will struggle like most quarterbacks do. And now they have the same kind of thing here. They lost three offensive linemen, probably the biggest downgrade of an offensive line in the entire NFL from last year to this year in Zeitler, Simpson, and Moses. So Moses being replaced by a rookie, you never know what you're going to get. So PFF, if you follow Pro Football Focus, has this O line ranked as the 25th best O line in the league. You cannot lose those three guys I just talked about and expect to have a great year again. They're going to need young guys to step up. Maybe one of them does, and they're okay. But at best, I think it's an average O line this year. Now, running back wise, they lost Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins has been hurt every single year, but Gus Edwards looked good last year. Let's face it, he really did. And now they're adding future Hall of Famer Derrick Henry. If you didn't watch Derrick Henry, let me just tell you, he did lose a step last season. He is now 30 years old. We know 30 years old and a running back is not a good combo. If you watched him split time with Tajay Spears, there was games Tajay Spears looked way more explosive than him. Do we really absolutely think he's going to dominate? Could he have a decent season? Maybe, but with a weak O line and a 30-year-old running back, can he stay healthy? He's not Derrick Henry in the prime. I'll just say that. But he is a beast, and he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, obviously. Pass catchers, they're thin, in my opinion, also. Zay Flowers, he should continue to improve. He's a decent receiver, but Mark Andrews obviously is the man. He only played 10 games this last year. Can he stay healthy? And then after that, you're counting on guys like Devontae Walker, who's a fourth-round rookie, Nelson Aguilar, Rashad Bateman. It's nothing special right there. So obviously Lamar Jackson with his legs can do a lot. But lately he hasn't been running as much because he wants to be more of a passer and you want to keep him healthy as well. But this offense, I think, is going to take a step back. And then defensively, they lost Davion Clowney. 9.5 sacks last season. They lost Patrick Queen to their division rivals. If you don't know Patrick Queen, he had a ton of speed. It's going to be a big loss for them. Front seven, they lost a few playmakers, but they still got some good ones. Kyle Van Noy, Roquan Smith, Justin Madubuike signed a huge contract, 98 million actually. He had 13 sacks last year, came out of nowhere. And then they have a good run stuffer in Michael Pierce. So their front seven's still going to be solid. Secondary, Marlon Humphrey is a stud, obviously, but they do lack depth behind him. They're going to be counting on first-round rookie Nate Wiggins from Clemson, and they got him for that reason. They lack some depth there. Safeties, Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams, both hurt last year. If they can stay healthy, they are a good duo, obviously, as well. But overall, they are playing in one of the toughest divisions as well. The first 5 games, and again, schedule is part of this when I handicap this. First 5 games are against playoff teams, and now they're going to be playing with a weaker O line, and now counting on a 32-year-old first-time defensive coordinator, lacking some depth in the secondary. I think they're going to be good, but people will think this team is like a Super Bowl favorite, and I just don't see it. With a really tough schedule that they have ahead of them, and really some downgrades. John Harbaugh is a great coach, obviously, and Lamar Jackson's a great quarterback, but I think they take a step back. So the Baltimore Ravens are my third and final overrated team. And now let's talk some underrated teams. All right, this first underrated team is the Indianapolis Colts. And if you watched it on the Kerm show, you saw me and Prop Beaver go back and forth about this one. They finished 9-8 last year, and the huge part of that was because Anthony Richardson did not stay healthy. But 9-8 with a backup quarterback in Mr. Gardner Minshew is not too shabby. Anthony Richardson, the key here is he has to stay healthy. Even when he did play those first 4 or 5 games, he was practically coming out of the game hurt in every single one of them. But they do have a new backup quarterback, a guy that everyone keeps calling me and thinks I look like, Mr. Joe Flacco. He played well for the Browns last year. We'll see if he can keep that up. But head coach Frank Steichen, I think he's a great coach. He's going to be in his second year, and he's good with quarterbacks that can use their legs. He did a heck of a job with Jalen Hurts when Hurts ran for 760 yards his first season under him. Anthony Richardson ran for 136 yards on 5.4 yards per carry in only 5 games where he was in and out of the lineup as well. So But the big thing is Anthony Richardson has got to learn to get out of bounds, slide, just stop taking the big hit, and hopefully he does now in his second year. But offense, you know what it is. It's the O-line, absolutely elite. Pro Football Focus has them ranked number 3 in the NFL, maybe the best tackle duo in Raymond and Braden Smith. They're both top 7 highest graded offensive tackles last year. They have a top 3 guard in Quentin Nelson. I mean, it's just elite. Center Ryan Kelly was also the highest rated pass protector in the NFL. That's insane, guys. All 5 offensive linemen return. There's a reason they won 9 games as with a backup quarterback, that's for sure. But let's talk pass catchers. Nobody elite, in my opinion, but a really good group. Michael Pittman had a great season with Minshew last year, and he got paid because of it. And then they drafted Adonai Mitchell from Texas. If you follow college football, they got him in the second round. He is a big time vertical threat that they needed. Ran a 4.3 40, third fastest. He's impressive. Josh Downs, Alec Pierce rounded out. There might actually be a injury to Downs. I didn't check that, but I'm not sure if he's out for a while or not. But Downs was a good slot wide receiver last year. It's not a bad group. It's a deeper group. If they can get something out of Adonai Mitchell, that would really help. Jonathan Taylor comes in healthy and not on a contract issue like last year, so it took him a while. Now we're going to have a fully healthy top 5 offensive line with a healthy Jonathan Taylor. I think he has a good year this year. Obviously, defenses are going to be spying Anthony Richardson more as well, which could also help. So that's the offense. Defense, though, last year, 28th in points allowed, 24th in yards per game allowed. That's not good. I'm not going to lie. But again, when I'm saying underrated teams, I think they're going to be solid. I do not think the Colts are winning the Super Bowl. Just heads up. But for the front 7, just kind of to let you guys know in the NFL, 12 of the 14 playoff teams finished in the top half of the league in pressure rate last year. The Colts, they were 8th in pressure rate. This is their specialty on defense right here. They had 51 sacks, the 5th most, and they did that with the lowest blitz rate in the NFL. They only blitzed 15.7% of the time, and yet still had the 5th most sacks. That's exactly what it's all about. You got to get pressure with those front 4 without sending a ton of guys from the secondary and all that. So I think they're going to be even better. They got Ebukam and Pay. They had 17.5 sacks combined last year, along with Deo. These names are hard. Deo Odungbo, who had 8 sacks as well. And then D tackle DeForest Buckner, we know about him. He had a great Pro Bowl season last year. 8.5 sacks, which is pretty impressive when you're playing on the inside of a defensive line. When you get pressure up the middle, it is absolutely huge. And then, even though this is their strength, they decided to just draft one of the best defensive players in the draft at Liatu Latu. Liatu Latu. Again, these names are tough, but that was their first round pick. He's another big time edge rusher. This could be one of the best pass rushes in the entire NFL. It's very deep. So linebackers, probably their biggest worry. Zaire Franklin stud. He had almost 180 tackles last year. I have no idea what happened to Shaq Leonard's career, and obviously he's not on the team now. But EJ Speed had 102 tackles. Wasn't a very good coverage linebacker. So we're gonna see. That's gonna be one of their weaknesses. And then secondary. Overall, they held quarterbacks to a sub 90 quarterback rating. Juju Brents and Dallas Flowers are 2, I'm going to say, decent cornerbacks. They're nothing elite. They both had injuries last year. They only played 4 games together, so it's really hard to see what they're going to do. So they got to stay healthy, obviously. But they do have a weak point of their defense, and it's probably the secondary overall. But they did have a good slot corner in Kenny Moore last year. Their safeties, Julian Blackman and Nick Cross, nothing special there. Blackman was elite in coverage. He had 4 interceptions and held QBs to a 43.9 rating. So he was good in the pass, at least 88 tackles. But they did add a 5th rounder. Maybe he can step up. But either way, this team still has some weaknesses, but I think they just, between their offensive line and their pass rush, this team could absolutely dominate trenches on both sides of the ball. So overall, you're looking at a team with a top 5 O line, top 5 pass rush in the NFL, at least top 10, explosive athletic quarterback with a head coach who knows how to use them, a solid running back, and a pretty solid group of receivers. And then their schedule starts out a little tough. We talked about this when I was on that Kerm show. Their first 4 or 5 games could be a little tough, but then the last 5 games of the year, they should win all of them. Patriots, Denver, Titans, Giants, Jaguars. Jaguars won't be easy, but it will be at home. So, I mean, if they're just right there in the thick of it and they go into that last stretch of 5 games, I think this team goes over their win total. And I think they can be a threat to the Texans if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy and he can keep improving as a passer. Obviously, he sometimes will have some accuracy issues. So if he doesn't turn over the ball, stay healthy, and use those legs, I think the Colts have a shot to have a pretty good season and better than most people think. So that's my underrated team number one. All right, this second one is the Jets. Jets. That's right. We're going to talk about them. They have the NFL's longest active postseason drought of 13 years. That's nothing compared to the Mariners in baseball, but either way, they finished 7-10 last year with 4 different quarterbacks. Coaching. Now, I'm not a huge Saleh fan, a head coach, but Hackett, I know people are going to make fun of Hackett, but he's had proven success with Aaron Rodgers. He did not have Aaron Rodgers last year. That was not the plan, and it changes absolutely everything. Ulbrich, solid defensive coordinator, 4th year with the Jets. Offense. They had some problems on the O-line, especially injuries, but they had some problems on the O-line last year, and they said, you know what, this offseason, we're going to make sure we take care of it because they want to protect Rodgers. They ended last season ranked 31st with all the injuries and everything. Their preseason rankings O-line for PFF, the 5th best offensive line. You know, remember Tyron Smith, we talked about the Cowboys losing? He went to the Jets. How about Morgan Moses, we talked about the Ravens losing? He went to the New York Jets. That's right. They were both top 10 highest graded offensive tackles last year and now are going to form one of the better offensive tackles duos in the NFL. That's going to be a really big help for Aaron Rodgers. You pair them with Veritaku, who played only 250 snaps last year, John Simpson, and then they had a first-round rookie also that they drafted if he can step up. This O-line could be pretty good, and that's why they're ranked in the top 5 now. Obviously, the big part of this one, Aaron Rodgers. He is back. Even if he isn't in his prime, which obviously at 40, 41 he isn't, he's still solid. He still has a strong arm. He's still going to read defenses. I think one of the more underrated things in football is when you have a guy, a future Hall of Famer like him. When you have Zach Wilson out there, he doesn't know what he's reading. He can't read a defense. He can't make a throw. He can't do anything. Aaron Rodgers is going to read defenses. He's going to be another coach out there on the field. He's going to audible. He's going to make sure the plays are the right way. He's going to go back and tell the coach when there's something going on. That's a huge part of being a quarterback, and that's a huge part of getting Aaron Rodgers back for this team also. And then obviously running back and receiver, my goodness, Brees Hall, top 5 running back in this league. He was a stud last year with no quarterback, a bad O-line, and was coming back from a huge surgery. And all he did was had 994 rushing yards and almost 600 receiving yards with 9 touchdowns. It was unbelievable. First of all, you don't see running backs do that just coming back from a huge surgery in general. And then when you have a terrible passing game and a terrible O-line, it's just absolutely wild. He's a top fantasy pick for a reason, that's for sure. But pass catchers, we know this could be the year Garrett Wilson joins the elite group. We know he has the talent there, but he just has not had any quarterback play, obviously, last year. Behind him, though, they are a little thin. It's veteran Mike Williams. We know about him, but he's coming off a torn ACL. 4th-round rookie Malachi Corley, Alan Lazard, who I'm just not a big fan of. He hasn't proven much to me, and he wasn't very good last season, that's for sure. So that's the offense. Defense, they had the 4th highest quarterback pressure rate last season. I think this could be the number 1 defense in the league. Let's just face it. When you have Aaron Rodgers back also, what you might not know is how much that helps the defense. Zach Wilson and those scrubs were literally struggling so bad that it was 3 and out, 3 and out. Defense kept coming back on the field. If you know football, you know a good offense is huge for your defense. And I think this defense maybe the most talented in the NFL. They have the front 7 is insane. Quinnen Williams, along with brother Quincy Williams, added Hassan Reddick. I know he's having some issues, contract extension, all that, but Javon Kinlaw, Solomon Thomas, they still have. I mean, this D line is strong. It is deep. And then at linebacker, C.J. Mosley, Quincy Williams, Jamian Sherwood. It's pretty solid. Secondary, one of the best tandems in the league. Let's face it. Sauce Gardner is a top 3, top 5 DB in this league. Or number 1, in case you're watching Sauce, because I know you're going to have something to say, along with DJ Reed. Other than that, they're a little thin. Safety is probably the weakest part of this defense, in my opinion. Tony Adams and Chuck Clark, I mean, they're okay. I don't know a ton about them. But I really think as long as they can stay healthy, this defense, it's just the sky is the limit. I think it's going to be unbelievable. They're going to be more rested. So overall, they're better on both sides of the ball, and they're absolutely loaded. Aaron Rodgers, he's going to bring leadership. He's going to need to just make plays on the field when they need him, but he doesn't need to carry this team. Brees Hall in this running game has the potential to absolutely carry this team. And they could easily start out 4-1. They start out with the Patriots, Broncos, Vikings, Titans, and 49ers, which could be their only loss. That's very easily a 4-1 start, assuming Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, obviously. And then they also have games against the Titans, Patriots, and Cardinals. I think the Jets could win 10 or 11 plus games here, possibly even win the AFC East if they stay healthy. So that is my final underrated team, the New York Jets. And now it's time to talk my favorite 2024 NFL futures. All right, this first one is actually a player prop, and we just talked about his team. Give me Brees Hall to have 1,000 rushing yards and 500 plus receiving yards at plus 275 on DraftKings. Did I mention he had this last year, except for he fell 6 rush yards short? How in the world can he not get it now this year? He gets an offense that is much improved. We already talked about it. O line is going to be one of the better ones in the NFL. And now he has a legit quarterback. They're not going to have defenses putting 8, 9 guys in the box to stop Brees Hall because they're not worried about Zach Wilson and all those other scrubs they put out there. So I just think the sky is the limit for Brees Hall. I Under 1,000 yards would be a shock to me if he doesn't hit that because he's as long as he stays healthy, he is an elite running back. You've seen it in college. You've seen it in the NFL already through 2 seasons. This offense has improved so incredibly much. I think as long as Aaron Rodgers finds him, because he's probably the second threat behind Garrett Wilson for pass catching, as long as he still has that rapport with him and gets those receiving yards, I love the plus 275 value. And like I said, we already talked about the offense. So give me Brees Hall, 1,000 rushing yards and 500 plus receiving yards at plus 275 as my first best bet. All right, these next two bets are going to be on the same team, and it's the Lions. The first one, Detroit Lions over 10.5 wins at minus 125. This team is absolutely elite in practically every position group on their team. It's unbelievable. Their O line is ranked number one. They played like it last year. They're going to have all the guys back. I don't see any reason why they don't just absolutely dominate the trenches again. And you watch Lions games, it's wild. They just completely bully teams down the field. It's crazy. It makes Jared Goff's job a lot easier, and that's why he's having a revived career in Detroit. But running back, wide receiver, tight end room, the pass catchers. I mean, first you start out Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs. Really great combo. Gibbs really gets all those outside the tackle yards, and Montgomery's always by the goal line. They have a great combo there. I just absolutely love it. I think it helps keep them fresh as well. And then you go to the pass catchers. Amon-Ra St. Brown is elite. One of the best route runners in the league. Quick as hell, that's for sure. And then you got Sam Laporta. By the way, as a rookie, 889 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. As a rookie, this guy is one of the top tight ends in the league now. And then most people are forgetting, but I'm expecting big things out of wide receiver Jamison Williams, a former first round pick. Got in trouble with some gambling and then injuries and all that, but I'm expecting a good year. All the reports so far out of camp are that he's ready to roll. So on defense, they added one of the best run defenders in the entire NFL in DJ Reader. If you don't know about him, he is an absolute stud. You pair him with Aiden Hutchinson on this D line. They added Marcus Davenport. You know, he's been kind of up and down. He was a first round draft pick by the Saints, I believe it was. But he's been kind of up and down. But now that you're going to have offensive lines focus more on DJ Reader, on Aiden Hutchinson, all these guys, maybe he could have a revived career here too. But their biggest weakness last year was their secondary. And my goodness, they focused all their attention on it this year. They drafted Arnold in the first round. And then they drafted Ennis Rakestraw, I think is his name, in the second round. Then they acquired Carlton Davis. Is he elite? No, but he's a tough-nosed DB, a veteran who could really help this team. Slot corner Brian Branch should improve. He had a rookie year last year that was pretty solid. So they made a ton of improvements. And then here's the big one, guys. This is absolutely insane. 14 of their 17 games are indoors. We all know Jared Goff. We know the Lions offense. We know they play much better indoors. They were 9-3 indoors last year. Jared Goff threw for 3,314 yards and 25 touchdowns in their 12 indoor games. And they could easily be 6-1 after their first 7 games. It's a really, really easy schedule. But 14 of their 7 is the most indoor games they've ever played. It's going to be wild. And I think that really helps them easily get over this 10.5 wins. So that's my second best bet. Now let's stick with the Lions. The third best bet, Lions to win the NFC North at plus 130 on DraftKings. We already talked about the Lions, but it's a two-team race in my opinion. It's them and the Packers. You know how I feel about the Bears for this season at least. They're going to be decent, but not there yet. Packers, I want to see Jordan Love repeat his success. I don't know if he's as bad as the first half of the year or as good as the second half of the year. We're going to find out. No, Aaron Jones could hurt. They did bring in Josh Jacobs. He was one of the more inefficient runners last year, did deal with some injuries. Maybe he bounces back. We'll see how they fit. I think the Packers are a good team, but I just think the Lions overall as a O-line, D-line, everything else, I think that I just like them a lot better. And then, like I said, their schedule, 14 to 17 indoor games. They play well at home. So I love plus money for pretty much just for the Lions to be better than the Packers. So that's my third best bet. Lions to win the NFC North at plus 130. All right, this fourth one is a player prop. I'm going to keep it short and simple. Give me Dalton Kincaid over 750.5 receiving yards at minus 110. If you don't know, he is the tight end for the Buffalo Bills. I am high on this guy. I got some fantasy drafts coming up soon. Ryan, close your ears, but this is one of my guys. So last season as a rookie, 91 targets, 73 catches, and 673 yards. Now, take away Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. They are now gone. We have to replace 241 targets and 1,929 yards somewhere. They're not all going to go to Kincaid, obviously, but he's going to be competing with guys like Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, and Dawson Knox for targets. Dawson Knox is like a backup tight end. He's going to be the number one tight end from the start this time, which he wasn't last year as a rookie. And I've seen some things in camp where he's even going out wide. He's going to be like a receiver. This guy is going to be all over the field, and they are going to count on him. Assuming he gets around, say, 120 targets, which he should, I think 751 yards shouldn't be an issue at all. I think he has a chance of approaching 900 to 1,000 yards if everything goes right. But I think he's going to have a monster year. So give me Dalton Kincaid over 750 and a half receiving yards as my fourth best bet. All right, my fifth and final bet before we get to those Super Bowl predictions is the Cincinnati Bengals to win the AFC North at plus 165 on FanDuel. DraftKings has them as slight favorites to win the division at plus 140. I would gladly take plus 165 on FanDuel. So, healthy Joe Burrow. That's right. Cool Joe. He is 16 and 9 at home in his career. They won 4 of the last 5 games before his injury last year. If you saw them, they looked like the best team in the NFL, including beating the San Francisco 49ers in San Fran when Burrow went 28 for 32 with 3 passing touchdowns. They also beat the Bills as well. They looked really good. So, one of the reasons I like this also, they have one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. They have the 6th easiest schedule compared to last year when they had the hardest schedule in the league. I like their running backs a lot better this year. Chase Brown and Zach Moss are a great duo. I know people are going goo goo gaga over Chase Brown, and he's looked good. And I like what Zach Moss did last year for the Indianapolis Colts. So Brown last year as a rookie, 53 touches for 322 yards. He had a fast 4.4 at the combine. If you don't know much about him. And they're losing Joe Mixon. That means nothing to me. He was boring. He didn't fit the system. I think they're going to be better in the running back room. Now, I don't know who that is. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins may be the best 1-2 combo in the NFL. It's just unbelievable. T. Higgins could be a number 1 receiver for other teams. Bengals just need to make sure Jamar Chase gets an absolute deal of a contract because he is a stud, and if he holds out much longer, it's going to impact the season, that's for sure. But O-line, I expect it to be improved. I'm not expecting it to be a lead or anything like that. They do have first-round rookie Amarius Mims that they're going to need to count on and step up. And you know what? He did in college. He only allowed 1 pressure on 168 pass blocking snaps in 2023 at Georgia in 11 games. So if he can bring that, that's going to be huge for Joe Burrow and staying healthy and upright. But all 3 interior linemen are back, led by guard Alex Kappa and center Ted Karras. They were pretty decent, and then the jury's still out on the rest. But if Amarius Mims can step up, we're looking at a pretty decent O-line. If they can be average, at least better than last year, then I think it's going to really help. So defense, led by a very deep D-line, including DN Trey Hendrickson. He's kind of one of those underrated players. 17 and a half sacks last year. He's now had 13 and a half or more sacks in 3 of the last 4 seasons. That's second in the NFL behind TJ Watt. And then DN Sam Hubbard, 6 sacks, 58 tackles. And then Sheldon Rankins, 6 sacks, who brings some good interior pressure. D tackle BJ Hill, 4.5 sacks, 42 pressures. They got some guys that can really play and really kind of make it a group that kind of subs each other out and make them stay healthy, which we saw a lot when my Seahawks were good in the D-line. But D tackles Chris Jenkins and run stuffer McKinley Jackson are going to be a good combo. They also have 22 first rounder Miles Murphy, who should be playing more. Reports are good. We'll see what he does. But the whole point of that is that they are very deep on the D line. And then, like I said, their schedule. Let's talk about it. 6 easiest, like we talked about. They have easy wins. Like we're talking, you can pencil them in for 7 practically at the very least, just against bad teams. They have 7 opponents that have a win total of 6.5 or lower. Patriots, Commanders, Panthers, Giants, Raiders, Titans, and Broncos. The reason for this, even though they finished 9-8 last year, they were 4th place in the division, which is insane. That means they get the last place schedule the next year. And so if we just say those are 7 wins, let's face it, those are 7 bad teams. Then they go 3-3 in the division to just be safe. We're already at 10 wins right there. And then other games at Chargers, at Cowboys, they can beat the Chargers. At Cowboys, winnable game. At Chiefs, going to be tough. And then against the Eagles at home, though, you win even just one of those four, and all of a sudden you're finishing with 11 wins. So we already talked about the Ravens earlier, how much I think they're going to be overrated this year. They also have the eighth hardest schedule. And so I think the Bengals have a great shot here. Obviously, the Steelers, have a chance. I think they're a little underrated. I think the Steelers could be a good team this year as well. And the Browns, I just don't trust Deshaun Watson. Nick Chubb's going to take a while to come back. So I think the Bengals have a good chance to win this division, and I like them to win it at plus 165 as my fifth and final futures bet. And now let's talk the Super Bowl predictions. All right, it's time to talk the Super Bowl prediction. And you already know one of my teams probably, but give me the Detroit Lions over the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Lions, we're going to be real brief because we already talked about them a lot with our futures bets. They have 14 to 17 games indoors. They start out with 7 straight dome games. We know how well they play inside, and they're elite in almost every aspect of their team. I think they have a huge, huge year. Now, the second team we have not talked about, it's just the Super Bowl champions, the Chiefs. My goodness, what else can I say here? They repeated as champion for the first time in the NFL in almost 20 years. We've had that. They won their third title in 5 years. Last year, if you happen to watch these season preview videos, I talked about how it might be somewhat of a down year, a rebuilding year for them, where they're still really good, but not a Super Bowl contender. Boy, was I wrong, and they are just unbelievable. They won a Super Bowl title when they had probably their least talent. It was just unbelievable. They struggled most of the year, and it didn't matter. They figured it out in the playoffs. But offense, they had no weapons last year. Let's face it. They relied on Isaiah Pacheco, who was solid last year in the running game. But this year, they drafted Xavier Worthy in the first round. Their first big time vertical threat since Tyreek Hill. If he can step up this offense, the sky is the limit again. He is absolutely fast, a great vertical threat, like we mentioned. Pair him along with now Marquise Hollywood Brown, who I think is going to start a little bit injured this year. But then you got Rashee Rice, maybe suspended for the first part of the year. But again, the first part of the year for the Chiefs just doesn't matter that much. KALSHI is getting a little older, but I do expect this group to be a lot better than guys like Marquez Valdez-Scantling and guys they could not trust last year. So O-line, absolutely elite interior blocking, and they struggled on the outside at tackle. They had Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor, who just kept letting guys pass them every single game, it seemed like. So as long as they can be average, they drafted a tackle in the second round, hopefully to help. But they just need to be decent. Give Mahomes just a little time, and even if they do let someone go right by him on the edge, Mahomes can get around it. He's very mobile. He knows what he's doing back there. But defense, they were incredible last year. I mean, this is why they were so good during the regular season still. They only gave up 17.3 points per game last year, and then they went to the playoffs, which, by the way, playoffs is supposed to be harder because you're facing good teams. They held teams to 15.8 points per game. And in the AFC, they faced Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Tua. And they held them under 16 points per game. It was absolutely unbelievable. Now, they did lose their number one DB, L'Jarius Sneed. But I think they got guys like Trent McDuffie and other ones that can step up. But it's obviously not ideal to lose your number one DB. But the bottom line here is I don't know how much it matters who's on their roster. As long as Andy Reid is the head coach and Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback, they're probably going to go down as maybe the best quarterback head coach duo in NFL history. I know we're talking Belichick and Brady and all that, but it's just been unbelievable what they've been able to do. They still got the talent and the coaching. So I like the Chiefs to make it. And now, by the way, this Super Bowl is in a dome. So the Lions could literally play, if they're the number one seed, they could play 14 of their 17 games in the regular season indoors, play all the NFC playoff games indoors if they're the one seed, and then go to the Super Bowl and play indoors. It's just absolutely insane. If you're a Detroit Lion player, don't bring your sleeves. You don't need them ever. That's just wild to me. So I think the Lions and Chiefs play for the Super Bowl. We'll see where we're at middle of the season, but it's just fun to predict and kind of guess what's going to happen. So that's what I got for my best future bets, the over underrated teams, and my Super Bowl prediction. Let's check out that recap. All right, these are my 5 NFL futures. If I have any more, it'll be in the pinned comments and then on Discord as well. But Breece Hall, 1,000 rushing yards and 500 receiving yards, plus 275. The Lions over 10.5 wins at minus 125, and the Lions to win the AFC North at plus 130. If you want to sprinkle on them to win the Super Bowl, obviously you know how I feel about that as well. And then Dalton Kincaid, the tight end for the Bills, over 750.5 receiving yards at minus 110. And we wrap it all up with the Bengals to win the AFC North at plus 165 on FanDuel and Bet365. Better value there than DK. So that's what I got for my futures. It's fun to talk some football, a little change of pace as the season is less than 2 weeks away. So thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate it. Let's have a great NFL season. And again, leave a comment below with any questions or comments about this upcoming season. So hope you have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon.